Hi, everybody. I just want to introduce our speaker tonight on radical candor. We're going to have Eric Peterson talk to us about this book. So I'm going to hand it over to him. And Eric, if you could just introduce yourself. I'm going to keep it here. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I will stop sharing.
Sure. I'm Eric Peterson. I work for Charles Schwab and Company today as a program manager. I lead a number of teams in the adoption of the OKR framework. I am considered a release train engineer as one of the roles that I play, but I also am a servant leader in all aspects and really appreciate all the hard work that Agilists today are bringing to the workplace, and very happy to be here.
Thank you. All right, it's all you, Eric.
All right. Well, excellent. Again, thanks for having me tonight. This isn't my first time in coming to one of the Agile special interest groups. I've had opportunities to be invited to a couple of the other ones. And so I'm really excited to be here with you all tonight talking about radical candor and what that means. And in particular, I'm happy to hear that several of you have read the book also, because I intend for this to be collaborative and a conversation. So your insights into various aspects of the book, Nicole, Chris, and Tron, don't be afraid to speak up. Because I think you're going to add a lot of value to the conversation and bring in some dimensions that that we wouldn't hear if you weren't with us tonight. So just diving straight in, let me just check this first. Is everyone able to see my screen? Am I sharing?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because in one of these prior ones, I went a few slides in, and nobody told me that I wasn't sharing. So these are the learning objectives. We'll just kind of get these up on the screen for you. There's so many things in this book that we could talk about, and those that have read it understand it is packed full of content. And I really see this book as an amalgamation of Kim's career, which I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. Our agenda for tonight is here. Sequentially, this is what we're going to do. I can't promise we're going to end exactly at 7:15, but we're going to get really close to that. It kind of depends how the conversation goes and how much we want to explore in a couple of the areas that I've identified for us. So you might be wondering, especially those of you who haven't read the book, or you're kind of wondering if you should read the book. I definitely give it a thumbs up because it is so rich. And coming from an Agile perspective, we like to listen to people who are vulnerable. If those of you like Brene Brown, you will like Kim Scott and how she puts her books together. Both this one, and I think Tron mentioned her other one, Just Work, that he's going through right now. Very vulnerable. She tells, it's kind of a tell-all of all the mistakes that she's made, but she weaves it into all the different aspects of the leadership style that she's presenting today. Based on what I know, she lives with her husband Andy in San Francisco. She had twins while she was working through her career. She earned her BA at Princeton and an MBA from Harvard. So she's like got this stellar background, which we can all appreciate. But she's also been an entrepreneur, and she confesses that she failed her first 3 startups before she eventually joined Google. But all of that to say, she has accomplished so much, and she's not done. She's still actively working. Those of you who know, she's online a lot. You can follow her on Twitter. You can follow her on LinkedIn. Of course, she has her own site, which are easy to find through Google. So she has like one of those careers that a lot of us admire. because she's accomplished so much and worked for these companies that we read about all the time in the tech space. A few of the big ideas that she explores, I've listed those up there. That's going to be really the focus of what we're going to talk about tonight. But as agilists and people in the tech space, I think you recognize, and I hope that you would agree with me, that sometimes just adapting to change, that might be table stakes, but really we need to be leading the change and begin to create the future. And that's a lot of the things that I'm doing with my teams, is trying to push the envelope forward, so that we can get more agile in our practices. But more than just the practices, it's really that mindset, which I think is so challenging. I think what we're going to learn tonight, some of the concepts will maybe help us be more persuasive. And we're going to introduce a framework that I think some of us are probably already applying but didn't know. And for those of us that are exposed to it for the first time, I think it can really help. So I hope that sounds good to you. We'll try to keep it moving forward. And there's going to be a couple breakouts that when we get there, Sherry is going to help us put us into a little smaller group so you can discuss. And maybe, Sherry, if it's possible, if we can get Nicole, Chris, and Tron in different groups, that might actually be really, really helpful. If you can't, that's also okay, but just a heads up there. So what is radical candor? And I think she makes this really easy to understand, but you'll recognize right away it's really, really difficult to do. Now, the framework is, in her words, is really meant to be a compass and not a mechanism to like judge people, like and how they're working and communicating. The two main things in this 2x2 that I want to call out is up at the top, care personally, and then challenge directly. Many of us, if you're a servant leader, you probably have that caring personally stuff down, or at least you're definitely on your way to kind of be able to engage people on their terms, leading with empathy, those types of things. The problem that I see and I experience, we have a word for it where I work, and as I mentioned, I work at Charles Schwab and Company, and this is very common. If you ask a Schwab person about the phrase I'm about to say, they'll tell you what it means. But I'll tell you what it means in the terms of Kim Scott's book. We call it Schwab nice, and Schwab nice means we're really trying to get consensus around decision making. And that sometimes delays things to a point where it impedes our progress. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We're very relational, but sometimes to a point where we are not actually helping. When Kim wrote this book, and she describes in the introduction, and the others that have read it, you can jump in here too and give your take if you like. But she talks about the challenge she had in naming the book, calling it radical. And in her words, though, she defined it a little bit differently in the book here. So she feels like there's certain things that we need to do, and using the word radical help really drive attention to it. But what she's really trying to say is what is truly essential in our communication, in being truthful and honest with our people that we care about, and that we shouldn't be afraid of this, that we should really lean into it and commit to not only caring about the people, versus you could see she has an exclamation point down at the bottom where you don't care at all about people, and then where you don't just keep quiet. And I think that's the biggest temptation I see in teams today, is we don't want to challenge authority because we're afraid, or we just don't have the tools. So I think as we describe some of the other aspects that that counter radical candor, it'll help drive us more into that upper quadrant. I'm going to pause here, and I would love to hear from Nicole, Chris, or Tron who've been through this book, and sounds like maybe one of you even have taught some of the principles in this book. What do you think that we should know about radical candor, just kind of up front and setting the stage for the discussion? Would one of you like to jump in? Come off of mute.
I'll jump in with one thought, and that is what I notice about this chart that she uses is that it presupposes a context of a relationship that matters. So a team environment, but I think it's also important for people to realize that sometimes silence is appropriate. Sometimes not caring about other people can be appropriate, especially if I'm like traveling down a dark alleyway, right? So I just think that this is in the context of teamwork, and it doesn't always apply to every aspect of life.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm so glad that you brought that in. Nicole, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I mean, I can't top that. That was awesome.
It's pretty good, huh?
Chris.
Okay. How about you, Tron? Any thoughts that came to your mind as you see this 2x2?
As you read the book, it's a slippery slope, and the new book that she's written, expands on that and the different dynamics of personality types, and then male, female, and she expands on that. It can be challenging for people to be direct, to be up in that upper right quadrant, to help guide, projects, activities, et cetera, business results. And I think she does a really great job in this book of just really giving some great examples of, her experience at Google and Apple. I could talk on and on, but I'll turn it back to you. But
actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because she compares and contrasts her time at Google and Apple. Would you be able to describe for us, like, and if you don't want to, that's okay too, put you on the spot, but because those are companies that we're familiar with and the cultures that we've kind of heard about, is that something that you'd feel like you'd like to share?
I'm not as well versed to speak to it on here. What some of the key takeaways was just some of the leadership examples that she had from Sheryl Sandberg and working with her first, and just the establishing trust and the directiveness, and then a big cultural shift going to Apple. And a big takeaway I see for me is people like to idolize some of these individuals, like a Steve Jobs, and they love to quote him. And I think she paints a really great backstory of what worked well at Apple. And it's not a quote from Steve Jobs that made them successful. There's a lot more to the minutia behind the scenes. And I think she really articulates that well in relation to this topic and how they drove their business success. And I think that's missed a lot. So I get out of it. So
thank you so much for being willing to share that. And hopefully the others that shared, you're not going to be shy as we go forward if I bring you back into the conversation like that. So I wanted you to hear that. There's a lot of interesting details just because of her career that you might find intriguing if those companies are interesting to you. So the first topic that I would like to dive into just a little bit more is, this whole thing about bringing your whole self to work. We talk about that where I'm employed. You hear about being authentic, being able to be yourself and having your own identity. But sometimes there's different aspects of it that I think it's worth diving into a little bit even tonight. Part of what we do in the Agile community is we want to build relationships that extend beyond our actual workplace. And so, using part of the time to get to know each other a little bit more, I think is important. And the aspects of like who we are as people, sometimes we forget that, or maybe we don't forget it, but we don't want to share it. But I can tell you that if people don't know what you value, and if people don't understand your perspective because we're not sharing it, it takes longer for others to trust us, because they don't trust people that they don't know or that they don't understand their background. So it's really up to us as leaders within our companies and within our teams to share things that are important to us. And in particular, if you can find stories around, and some people are better at this, than I am, or maybe than you are, but making an attempt to share things, funny things, serious things, but to just to be your genuine self. And as you can get better at that, then, because we have to go first as leaders, then we can begin to invite our peers and our teammates into that conversation. And so anytime I'm looking to make any change, it's always me that has to go first, because we want to be able to model what it is that we want, and we need to be able to share. And sometimes, like with pictures, are really important, where you can see the person's family or the people that are most important in their life, or things that they do that might create new connections, and to share with people why it's important. Remembering what's important to you, because how you see yourself will drive your actions, because action always follows identity. And if you're able to do that over a period of time, and using the principles of radical candor, first of all, caring for the people that you're trying to lead. And this gets back into servant leadership, which I talk about a lot. And I see a lot of what Kim talks about, helping servant leaders be more effective, because we have, as servant leaders, have challenges sometimes being candid, because we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But sometimes that's not actually being kind. Telling the truth and helping people hear the message that they need can inspire them to do more than they ever could by themselves. And if you do that enough with other people that are wanting to follow you, that because they trust you, there's a possibility of creating community, like what Sherry's done here and what the other agile leaders have done in the Denver area to build the Agile Mile High that they have. In my work, we formed a community of technologists that are focused on helping each other because we care, all volunteers, and with leadership support. And that's something that we can do with our families, just in your community or at work. So right now, I'm thinking what might be interesting is, as I kind of put these questions up on the board here on the presentation, think about these as I'm flashing them up here, because we have to know who are we? Who do we want to become? What are the things that are important to us? Because that's really what's going to drive us. And that's what's going to help us connect with other people, so that we can begin to see things maybe from not only our perspective, but from their perspective. And that's hard work. That's emotional labor. And we need to do it because before we can begin to have radical candor, be able to praise people for things that they do, and actually share with them how meaningful it is, the positive things that they're doing, well before we can begin bringing anything that's critical to them, we need to be able to share with them and be able to help them connect with us, and to be able to give us criticism as well, even before we start to look to do that with others. So I think right now what I'd like to do, Sherry, if we could, as part of the idea of bringing your whole self to work, let's explore maybe for 10 minutes the question of what is it that you really value, at your workplace or in your life, that you do bring to work. And so if you want to go ahead and put people into teams in the breakout rooms for like 10 minutes. So would like maybe each of the groups, maybe just to kind of maybe summarize a little bit around what they learned, either about their team that they were just meeting with, or about maybe some of the values that they identified. I heard those in the room I joined. So maybe we could start with, I don't know if you remember which room you're in. Was it room number 1, 2, and 3? Someone from room number 1 want to just speak up and talk a little bit? Or is that, or maybe I could just start with Nicole. That was the room I was in. She can kind of model what we're going to do here.
Sure. I took that facilitator flag with my full fist.
Thank you.
So what we all ended up agreeing on, different people said different things, but trust and reliability, being honest about risks, internal motivation, which included coworkers that wanted to be there and wanted to be part of the team, having value in personal motivation, and then humor when appropriate is how I'm going to rephrase it after our discussion.
Mm-hmm.
If I missed anything, please add.
That was great. Okay, another room. Maybe the room Tron was in.
Authenticity, teamwork, was important. Establishing trust was critical for collaboration and communication. Big topic that we discussed.
Terrific. And Chris, what about your group?
Yeah, we had a conversation. We explored the uniqueness of each individual, and so there was value around inclusivity and communication. Hope and Jeff, I'm looking for help too, because I'm forgetting what they all were. I didn't write them down. I was just enjoying the conversation. Yeah. I think integrity came across, and authenticity in relationships, and Hope, I'm forgetting yours.
Curiosity, but vulnerability was a
right.
big thing that happened too. Yeah.
What I think was really cool though that happened is that because we shared about ourselves, Jeff felt comfortable enough to ask about a challenge that he was facing, and we all brainstormed it together. And so I thought that was kind of fun and represented a very quick bonding moment that we had.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That is really awesome. I'm not surprised by this group at all, especially with your backgrounds and how you are developing your teams. Agile people, that's you all, have a superpower that's really underappreciated, I think, in organizations today. I'm hoping that we're going to change that, where leadership is really looking to people with the mindset that you all just demonstrated, to help bring the change that they want so desperately, but sometimes get stuck in, I'll just say, bureaucracy for other, maybe that's a nice way. But creating a culture of open communication. So you're already doing that. You just practice that. And back to the 2x2 and understanding what are these other quadrants, what do those represent? And we're going to have another breakout about these. And the one, and when we do that, let's talk about the one that maybe gives us the most trouble. Before we do, let's like kind of review what each of these mean. So we know.
Are you wanting to share a screen, Eric?
Oh, sure. Thank you. See there, people helping me. I need to. That's interesting. Go back to, yeah, okay. Here it is. I'm sorry. I just got so interested in what we were talking about. I forgot about the screen part. Okay, now you can see? Yes. Okay, good. I didn't hear you, but I saw your head nod up and down.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So back to the quadrant again. so when we think about ruinous empathy, I mentioned, at our company, we call it Schwab Nice, where, we try to spare people's feelings. And so we don't always do what we should be doing because we either don't know how or because we're quiet. And that doesn't help. We're not doing our responsibility. And that's something I'm actually working on. There's a manipulative insecurity, which we might call that backstabbing, is what Kim equates it to, where everything's fine up front, but then as soon as you leave, it's the other thing. Oh, they don't know what they're doing, or we just don't want to give them the feedback. We're not the right one to give them the feedback. And so some of us struggle with that. I doubt that most of us on this call, because we're so, I'm making an assumption, but we're probably pretty self-aware. And we're not going to be that guy or that gal that's being obnoxious. And that's where you give them the brutal honesty, and that Kim calls front stabbing. So we don't even wait till they turn their back. We just let them have it. Although we might do that when we're driving in our cars, at least here in Denver. It can be crazy out there, and sometimes. So really, the radical candor, her point around that is it only works if the other person understands that we genuinely care about them, and that because we do, we are given permission, we'll say, to be able to challenge them in good faith, and so that they're going to receive it. So you've already established that relationship. And if you read the book, she goes into great detail in specific ways to be able to do that, and to begin with praising people first before you move into criticism, and to model for them how they can criticize you, like even in public, to inviting people to give you that type of feedback in public that typically you would give to people in private, and to show them that you really want it, that you really do value their feedback, and to reward them for the feedback that you get. So all of it starts with us as leaders to be able to model the practice before we can expect to be able to deliver some of that feedback. So what I would like to do now is, if we could, discuss which behavior is the hardest for you and what you might be able to do to move closer to radical candor. So I'm really curious, like in your groups, like which one of these is hardest? If you have a majority or of those things, I'm going to guess what it is, but let's see if we can go back to our groups and just kind of continue the conversation you had with your room, and then come back and you can explain which one of them is hardest for you. Can we do that, Sherry?
In theory, everybody should be able to rejoin their breakout room.
Oh,
Please
okay.
let me know if you're able to.
Perfect. Good luck, everybody.
We'll see you in 10 minutes.
10 minutes. No, I see people are going.
Yeah, I'll help.
That is so
folks
cool.
along. Yeah, I'll help them along. Oh no, no. Well, I don't know. I'll let them poke along.
Okay.
I see some that say not joined, not joined. So it might be Samantha and Nicole that are hanging by themselves.
I see.
But everybody else has rejoined their group. But I can't, for some reason, I'm not able to move Anna or Annie B into.
Can they hear you?
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
So
well,
yeah,
we can...
go ahead. Yeah, I'm not able to move you guys. You should be able to hover down at the bottom and it should say breakout room, and you should be able to rejoin your breakout. Oh, it looks like Anna. Okay. Hey, Anna, let me put you in a breakout room, okay?
Yeah, I was in breakout room 1 and I tried to join that and it
Mhm.
just kind of hung.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of like in transit and then you kind of,
Yeah, so I
oh,
just
interesting.
disconnected and rejoined.
Okay.
So I don't know if Sherry can get me back in group 1 or not.
Sorry about that. I somehow joined. I joined the group.
Oh, you
not,
joined.
Oh,
I did not. Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
that's funny.
I was like, wait a minute. I'm going like, it's like it's in slow motion and you're like, I can't stop this motion moving into the breakout session. So if it's okay with you in the group, it's okay to extend this. It's totally fine, especially if we're getting this interaction with people.
Okay. That's up to you. I mean, I'm not sure what time time commitments for folks are, but there's one shorter part. Actually, I might just skip to the last section, which kind of goes through the model, one of the frameworks that she offers, which I think could be interesting just to go through and just have the discussion in a bigger group. And then just kind of close with that.
Okay.
I mean, that's up to you. I mean, we can.
Well, I'd rather it be up to the group to say,
Thank you.
like give them the, A, B, and C choices.
Okay.
Like we can extend it by this much and do everything as planned. Apologies for it being, a little longer. We can flip flop things, or, plan C could be, okay, who would like to stay on longer? And I'll do this segment.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Like the bonus round, right?
Okay.
So, kind of offer up 3 options, because I'm fine either way.
All right. I'm good with that.
Yeah. And I actually did put my timer on, so we've got plenty of time. We probably cut them short the last time.
You think so? I don't think we did. I think they were.
Okay.
I think they were ready to come back, and I think that we exceeded the 10 minutes overall.
Okay.
So but it's good. I mean, it does really. I mean, the group I joined that you came in later. I mean, they were like deep into stuff, so it's really healthy.
That's
It's
great.
just like, yeah, it's just like as if they're like one of my teams or something. And they know each other and they just feel comfortable talking about stuff.
Nice.
So that's really encouraging. So your predecessor and you've done a good job in cultivating it. I found that at every group. I think I've spoken to what was Mark Eastman's group. The one they did for coaches. I spoke that one. And
well,
then
it's Lori who's running that now, or is it?
And then I spoke at Lori. Then I spoke. No, it's a different. Oh, okay. So that was Lori's, and then there's the scaled agile one. That was the first one I spoke at. So they have 3 co-leads, or they have 2 co-leads now, the same 2. But Mark Eastman, I think, was one of the founders, and he's not part of it now.
So is that with Sally?
Yeah, Sally Tate, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
And that was an in-person group several years ago at Solemn, I think, is where they were meeting. That was an interesting workspace going downtown.
Okay.
But it was fun.
Cool.
And they had a really nice, I mean, it kind of felt like being at work, but different, because everyone was coming from different places and just showing up and, only, being with people that you've actually only seen them online and then
Mhm.
seeing them in person, it's different.
Well, it is. I think we are all having to kind of learn some new social skills from the virtual world to in person, and doing that human to human interaction again in many regards, professionally, because we have been working virtually for so long.
Have you noticed, and well, number one, are you back in an office someplace sometimes?
So I am a consultant, and I work with different clients, and ideally once COVID lifts, the idea is I'm supposed to be traveling every week.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So, but that's not something I've ever done before.
Okay.
But they're also just talking about, like, my company as a whole is actually, everybody's kind of benefiting, at least financially, not having to pay all the overhead for, room and board and airfare and stuff like that, getting people to these places regularly. So I think that they're actually, they're going to be more like staying in a virtual setting.
Okay.
And maybe just getting together for quarterly planning or something.
Yeah, we have that coming up. I was just going to share, and maybe this wouldn't mean anything to you at this point, but I've noticed some people are different in their behaviors and how they interact than what I remember 2 years ago. Like, people that were really quiet, they're not quiet anymore. They're like really talkative, like different, like
Wow.
totally different. Like, not that maybe they weren't before, but now they're like, they want to express themselves. And I've noticed this in two, like, leadership people. And it's like, and other people notice it too. And I'm wondering if I'm going to see that more, because we just started our RTO last week. And then this week, so a few more people coming back for at least 3 days a week. Or maybe only 1 day a week. There's like absolutely no pressure around like how many days you come in, but like ideally it's 3 days or whatever you agree with your manager. So tremendous flexibility.
I love the idea of it, but how do you create some cohesion if there's like random configurations of people at any given time?
That is something we're going to figure out. And right now, I think just like when we had people that left, where they say, okay, everyone's going to go home, and then people can come back if they want or not. I think our leadership, just like senior leadership, or probably, this is just me guessing, that they don't want to apply anything that feels like pressure right now.
Yeah.
And they're going to just hold that line until, I don't know what the trigger would be where they would maybe make a change. But I don't think it's anytime soon. I don't think they want, because people have a lot of, they're dealing with a tremendous amount, some more than others in their situations. And it's just, they're being smart, I think, and they're really just letting people decide. And the companies, I think, that do that are going to be way better off in the future, because they'll have a very loyal workforce that will have appreciated what they did and how they can work. But you bring up a great point. And I will say that the people, because I've been very involved in the RTO stuff, the people that come in, they say, I didn't think I wanted to come in. But now that I'm like, just for an event, like we did 10 activities over 2 weeks, over the last 2 weeks. And we're finding that people that do come in just to participate with one of those, they're like, I didn't realize that I missed this so much. And so they're kind of
Mhm.
rethinking how much they want to be away versus coming in and interacting with individuals on their teams. And even if they don't have their teams on prem, that they just like being around other people. So I'm learning so much by how people are reacting to the environment now. We'll see.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge sociology project to understand.
Looking forward to reading your book or someone's book here someday, and they could tell us all about how it worked out. Is everyone back?
It looks
people are-
like it.
Okay, go ahead.
Everybody who's here, say that you're here. Just kidding. I think everybody's back.
All right, cool.
And I have a question before you leave that slide.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go back. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it again. And I didn't read the book, so I don't know if I'm jumping into something maybe that the author, Kim, did. But what I've been noticing in my consulting, because I do a lot of leadership and executive coaching as well, and organizational coaching, had a client just recently where it seemed like they toggle diagonally. So they were in the ruinous empathy. We have to be nice, nice, nice,
Mhm.
to the point where they got triggered and then they blew up into obnoxious aggression. And then I also had leaders who, I don't know if they were wanting to focus on radical candor, but they ended up being manipulative in sincerity, right? So it sounds like they're wanting to be radical candor, but really they're manipulating and using the information against the team, against the organization, to the point of one person got fired for trying. It's like, oh, you want radical candor? I'll share something. And they didn't like what they heard. It wasn't obnoxious. It wasn't nothing. It was just kind of direct, like, and then the whole organization just like contracted into ruinous empathy. But I'm seeing this diagonal, I guess, pivot or ping-ponging. And I'm just wondering if Kim, the author, talks about it.
Yeah, she does in a lot of different dimensions. And I might call in Chris and the others that have kind of gone through this too. But I think I felt that myself. I don't know if you can like kind of relate to maybe what some of those leaders were doing, where you want to be able to do it, but you're not exactly sure how to get there. And the manipulative insecurity, I mean, there are people that just, that's kind of how they work. But the people that are really trying to help, if they're actually caring personally, they want to get there. You do fall back and forth between the empathy part and like being quiet or when to speak up. And I mean, it's a whole, I mean, it's like a whole process to get there and to grow into it. And the practice, I think, that you have to have with people that you trust or with your team. And if you do pick up the book, there's a section at the end, at least in the newer one, that actually kind of lays out a plan of how you can approach it with a team. But you have to kind of get them, if you're trying to do that as a team, you have to like introduce them to the concept and like, what does it mean and how is it going to work? And then you have to model it, and then you have to go first, and then they have to be able to give you the criticism, and then you have to practice praising them as well. So it's I mean, it's easy to see it in a 2x2. So she's quite brilliant in putting it this way, but the practice of getting to just challenging directly. One of the keys that she does bring up is like to not get into the ruinous empathy is to share your feedback really quickly and don't hold it. You got to get it to them, because there's like a laundry list of reasons why, maybe like 10 to 15 of them in one of the chapters, might be chapter 5 or something. And she lists out like your feedback has a half-life, a short half-life. That you should be able to share your feedback in just a couple of minutes, or even between meetings. Like, hey, I need to give you some feedback on the presentation. But you don't always give the feedback, because it's not always material. You don't have to like knit everything too. So I guess you have to be a little wise in how you want to approach it and where you want to start. Chris, in your experience, I know that you've done some consulting in this area based on what you've said. What would you suggest to Kim?
Well, I think, this actually kind of hits on a criticism that I might have about the book. And that is, so I think Dale Carnegie might have said something like, in the story of a person's life, they always play the hero, right? No one ever tells the story of their life where they're in the role of the villain. And so I think when people read this book and they see words like ruinous, manipulative, and obnoxious, it's
never us.
It's very rare that someone's going to put themselves in one of those boxes, and that our brain will convince us that we're actually doing the thing, even though from an outside perspective, people might see it differently. So, yeah, I just kind of have an issue with using such judgmental language, because I think it prevents people from really being able to see themselves in an accurate way.
I love that, Chris. Thanks for sharing. Now let's practice. Is there somebody else on the call that sees it differently, like say Nicole or Tron, where you might have a different perspective?
I don't know that I have a different perspective, but she is actively working to remove her aggressive language. If you listen to her most recent podcast, like they'll call each other out. It's kind of funny. I forget, like, I don't remember which one was most recently, but she was definitely like, oh, we can't say, it was some GSD circle. And so like they took a word out because it was aggressive. And I'm telling a terrible story because I don't know all the words.
That's okay. That's good.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to the GSD. I'm glad that you that'll be a good segue. I don't know, Kim, if we really addressed your question, but if you do dive into the book, there's a lot of details in there that might help. There's just a lot. I mean, her book is really full of oh no, like I feel like in transitioning maybe into this next section, it's always about
Can I interrupt really quick, Eric, and let's just check in with everybody?
Oh yeah, please do. Please do.
Well,
thank you.
Why don't you give some options? We usually wrap it in about 15 minutes. I am learning we might be going longer, and I need to time box this more to 2 hours. Eric, what are some of the options you'd like to give the folks here? And we could do like A, B, or C in the chat.
Okay. Well, so we covered half, but the other half isn't as long if I go faster. Okay. And we don't have any breakouts. So it'll just be this group together. The next section is around growth trajectory, which I think is really interesting. And we could end there. The second option is we could do growth trajectory and then press into getting stuff done, which is a framework and how to work collaboratively, which I think is also interesting and worthwhile. So we could do both of those or one of those. So we could do option one, which is, we'll just say trajectory. Two is skip to the framework for getting stuff done. And three would be both. And four could be none. We could wrap up.
And how much do you think we'll go over if we do all of it?
Quarter till. I think we would probably go another 25 minutes.
Is everybody good with that? Like maybe share in the chat if that's a good thing.
You don't hurt my feelings if you, either way, whatever you want to do.
So Jeff said 3.
Okay.
Can we remind everybody what option 3 was again?
Three is both. 3 is both.
Okay, do it all.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Kim needs to drop. Usually, Kim, I'm glad you're sticking around because usually you do have to drop even earlier. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got more work tonight
Oh, well, I understand.
for a meeting with India in the morning. So
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we've got our answer there. Nicole, thank you for sharing those resources. I'll put it in the sign up sheet so it's all tidy and neatly packaged there together. And Eric, I will close out the breakout rooms and carry on.
Okay. So we're good. Well, we I think actually Chris made this point in his reaction around sorry, that we never see ourselves as a villain. We're always the hero. We want other people to change, but we're not always willing to change. So I thought that was a great way to close that segment out. Now this one, she picks out this interesting concept about how we think about people's career progression and how people grow. And she shares her transformation in thinking in how she views people that are on different trajectories. And she just compares and contrasts a couple of them. And I copied the language directly out of the book here into this chart, where she talks about individuals that are on a steep growth trajectory and compares those to those that are on a gradual growth trajectory. And from her perspective, I found this interesting, that she valued people that were on a steep growth trajectory. And sadly, or happily, because she's changed her opinion, that she doesn't think that way anymore. So like one of the challenges I had in the book is I don't know if I would have liked working with her or for her as she was going through her transformation and how she thinks and teaches today. I don't think it was the same when she was working at Apple and Google as what we find in the book. That was my impression only. But here's the thing that I think is important for us as people that are growing in our careers, is to understand in her dichotomy that you can be a superstar, and then you can be a rock star, and then you can be a superstar, but there are no B players. It's just a matter of like where you're at in your career and where you are wanting to be in your growth. So she definitely makes the point that there's certain people that are really ambitious. They want to just go up, up, up. And there's other people that they're very stable, and they're the ones that kind of hold everything together. And personally, earlier in my career, like I got promoted, like it seemed like almost every year, for like 5 years. It was like I had 5 or 6 promotions super fast. And then honestly, like 14 years, I was at a senior level and no promotions, but I was still growing. But I felt like I was comparing myself to like other people that were still in that superstar trajectory, and they were going really fast. And some people even will just say like they passed me, although I didn't really want to go where they were going. So when I talk about these things, this is really enlightening to me, that, hey, guess what? It's okay, Eric, that you can build your career the way that you need to build it. You can grow at the speed that you're comfortable to accommodate all the things that are going on in life and at work. And that's perfectly okay. What did you like when I'm explaining that? I know there's some, you haven't read this, but when I'm kind of explaining and sharing with you how she sees the different trajectories, how do you think about it? This is kind of how she summarized it a little bit in her guidance and principles. Is there anyone on the call that would like to share their feelings about this? And it's okay. You don't have to.
I can go. I thought this was awesome. Like
Mhm.
superstars and rock stars. That is one of the principles that did stay with me, that it depends where you're at and where you want to go, what is your, and it can change often.
Mhm.
Like she gave her example of when she was pregnant, she needed to just be the rock star that got her work done and did it really,
Yeah.
really well, but she had to focus on staying healthy. And I think that's awesome. Like I wish more managers understood, like just because somebody is super competent doesn't mean that they're not worthwhile to like
Mhm.
focus on. So I thought
Mhm.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wonder. I maybe I didn't pick it up in the book exactly, but I'm kind of feeling when she had her twins and she realized that she couldn't be at the trajectory she was. Not that others couldn't, but she said for herself she couldn't. I wonder if that's what maybe kind of triggered her thinking differently. Did you think about that, Nicole, at all?
I didn't. I think she told a different story of when it, I forget his name, the one that she didn't manage well.
There's a few of those.
He has like a Bob. It's like Bob, the
Okay,
Bob
I
story,
remember
or something
Bob.
like,
The
yeah.
Bob story.
So yeah, I think it was later where she realized and then was able to look back on her life.
Okay, maybe that was it. Chris, do you have a different recollection?
I don't remember this part. I don't think it resonated with me much. But
Okay.
I guess what comes up for me in this moment is just thinking about expectations that we have of others versus expectations that we have of ourselves, and just how open are we about those.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it was interesting. It was kind of like I took a lot of what she was saying and tried to apply it to like my workplace and how we do things. And when we do evaluations of individuals, we do I'm not sure if everyone knows how this works, but there's like this traditional 9-box, which kind of looks like this, but there's actually 9 boxes as far as like if you are a high performer, high potential person, you would be in the upper right hand corner, and then everything else kind of goes down to low performer, low potential, and obviously then there's different strategies for trying to manage those people. So she kind of used that as the backdrop and then thought about what it should be like if there's actually people that are in different growth trajectories. And you can read the book to kind of see her perspective on this. I don't know like where that actually works, but if you're a manager, I think there's opportunity to think differently about how people grow, whether they're on this higher trajectory for right now, or if they're in the steady trajectory, but they can both do excellent at their jobs and have excellent performance, and they can continue to grow. So this chart was kind of came out of the book too, that I thought was worth showing because it really opened my eyes to a different way of seeing how my career has developed, and maybe being able to relate to other people who really are challenged in where do they go as a scrum master, for example. It's like they're like, we need to go up. It's like I'm kind of feeling, I mean, it's up to them what they want to do, but if they realize if they take a step up into we'll just say management, they might become less effective, or their work may become less enjoyable because they're so used to like working with individuals and leading and guiding teams, and they might not be able to do that as much. And I feel like sometimes people are penalized for just doing a great job every day if they're not like taking that next step. And it's like, oh, so anyway, in the book, Kim offers a different way of looking at how people are growing. And I really appreciated that she put that in the book. The last section for tonight is around this model. And here, Chris, Nicole, and a little bit on each of these steps. It's a really simple model for getting stuff done that I really like, because I think a number of us, we do this mostly, but there's a couple of these steps that we probably, if we and we'll see if you see how you think about it. So she has these 6 steps. Oh, that's sad. Can you still hear me? It says my internet connection is unstable.
You went out for a
Yes,
little
we
bit,
can.
but I did. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Maybe it's telling us something. Okay, so we talked about listening, and someone actually made the point about there's some people that listen quiet, and there's some people that listen loud. They didn't use those terminology, but is it okay if Chris, Tron, or Nicole tell us, like, compare and contrast the different listening styles, I guess? Would someone like to?
They're listening silently.
I'm actually drawing a blank on this section. I think it's just that time of night where I'm drawing a blank on this section. I do remember this diagram, but
It's okay.
I don't. I should have brought the book with me. I've actually got it packed up right now because I'm moving here soon. But so
No
I
worries.
took some notes on it.
Well, effectively, there's some people that they just need the more time to kind of think and process. And they just don't say anything. They just kind of listen, you know. And I think she compared and contrasted the listening styles of some of the leaders in Apple and Google. And there's some that they kind of challenge, you know, as you're like talking and stuff, and they're it can be really annoying. But that doesn't mean that they're not listening, I guess, is just a different way. Chris, did I describe that right, or how? uh, all right. Well, listening as an agile leader, we all recognize how important that is to listen for understanding and to be curious and those things, versus trying to get kind of the next word in. So the next one, which I think agile people like this group, you're probably pretty good at, and that is asking those clarifying questions, reframing, to be sure that we do understand what somebody else is saying. Maybe some mirroring or repeating back in different language to be sure that they understand. Knowing your audience, those things. I really sense that Agilists have that down pretty well. The next step, though, I feel this is where I think we can do some improving. And part of it is, you know, as a coach, in some cases that might be a little more difficult to get to a place where you can debate. I want to just share, like, there's the debate and decide is where I think we can make a lot of progress. The debating needs to be, according to Kim, and I agree, if we can separate that from the decision. So that way you can actually create an opportunity for conflict and debating both sides, or even like switching positions, depending on what it is you're talking about. And run experiments in your teams on, like, hey, if we had a different perspective, what would that look like? Or having that opportunity to practice dissenting in your teams and getting people used to hearing a different point of view that they may not agree with fully, but being able to listen to it for the idea, not the person, and to do it in a way that I think someone on the call was talking about how important humor is. Kim thinks so too, is to, like, bring humor and fun into those debates. So when we think about debating an issue or to make a decision, Chris, Tron, or Nicole, is there an aspect to that that you've tried on one of your teams or in your organization you'd like to share?
Debating is like by far my worst.
Mm.
So no, I haven't tried anything, or if I did, it didn't work for me.
I mean,
Or
rather than debate, I might see that more as brainstorm.
okay, tell us
And,
about that. Yeah.
We're just, there's this idea of like divergent thinking and then convergent, and so we
Mhm.
have to go into the groan zone, like they call it, where it's like, oh my God, these ideas are so stupid. But it's about getting really crazy ideas out there because that spurs other people's ideas. So anyway, I just would say debate kind of assumes that we're down to a few choices. And I think that there's an important maybe brainstorming piece in there,
Okay.
getting a long list of choices and then narrowing that down in a decision-making process. So yeah, I think I might replace that with brainstorming.
Yeah, I she didn't bring that into her work, but that's definitely something I use. And I think that could potentially be a step in here that would add a lot of value before you get to the debating part. I find I work with a lot of leaders too, like the VP or managing director type people. And I find they don't want to do that. They don't want to do now they'll do the stuff behind, when people aren't there, and kind of work things out. And then they all of a sudden agree. But I've tried to orchestrate a debate when I was a chief of staff for one senior leader, and they just did not want to do it at all. They were not going to have it. But I've tried it with my teams.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted clarity. They didn't want to debate, you're saying? Yeah.
No. And I think it's like cultural or something. But if I take it to my teams and I frame it the right way, because like we trust each other, they'll do it. It's like, all right, now who else has a different opinion? And if they have one, they'll share it.
Yeah.
And then I find that there's a lot there that you can start to unpack. But most people don't. At least the people I work with, they don't want to disagree. They want to find a way to agree. They're always trying to find that path. And I think sometimes we don't get to the best solution because we didn't really try hard enough to find, I'm not saying the conflict, but just we didn't really want to dig into the problem deeply enough to get to the right solution, because eventually we get there. It just is later on, and then why didn't we do that? So I think some of the times that debate could maybe draw that out. And just I'm going to flip to the next one, which is the decide, because the teams I work with, they said we don't have time. We gotta let's get this thing going. And leaders are they have the same mindset around like, what are we waiting for? Let's just go. Well, because people are unsettled, and sometimes we skip through the debate, we get to the decision, and then we're sorry later. Or we get to a point where now we're into this persuading. And I like how she kind of breaks this out, because sometimes we don't do the debate. There's a decision that nobody knows about or how we got there. And now they're like just telling people this is what we're doing. And I find that to be very disruptive. And I mean, it really breaks trust of the team members when they're told. And so I like how she described in the book, after you've gone through the steps, you understand the problem. Not everybody's going to be involved in the decision. Decision will be made. But here's the part that sometimes we miss. And this is a part that I had to learn, not with this framework, but because I did it wrong so for a long time, is that people want to understand, how did you arrive at that decision? And if you can explain it either with data or with rationale that they can relate to, you will let them express their emotions, because they might not agree, and it's okay if they don't. that you can establish credibility because you just walk them through the process. Where in the past, what I would say is like, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do it in this time frame, and that's what leadership expects, and all the stuff that irritate us, I would use on my team. I don't so much now because I'm more aware, but they appreciate us when we show our work. That's her terms, is like, if you can logically show the steps you took, they'll most likely buy into it, even if they don't agree. What is your reaction to that? Do you think that would work in your area, or has that worked in your area? Anyone can take that.
For me, I would say it depends on the topic.
Okay.
So some topics are a lot heavier. An example is we discussed working remotely full-time. And that was one where, I think we tried to brainstorm. We tried to take the decision away and just brainstorm, try to get here to, and maybe not persuade, but figure out the benefits of, being in together, collaboration, and also being at home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard to separate anything from the decision.
Where did you ultimately land then?
No one wants to come in.
Okay. Anyone else?
Eric, as I look at this, Eric, I would just say that it strikes me as a model that works for very large companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a lot of smaller companies where, there's a lot more collaborative approaches that are possible. So I would just throw that out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Okay. Well, once a team has gone through these steps and they finally get to the execution piece, she suggests that we don't waste time, that this is where, the decision's been made, let's get going. And our job then becomes removing the blockers and when necessary to jump in and help the team. So it's like, this is what Scrum Masters do and Agile people do all the time, is they're not afraid to get in and swarm on problems. And that's pretty much what we do. So it really made sense there. Once the decision is made, that's we go. And I'm glad that she added this last step in, which is also what we do, and to change course when information changes. And so we learn and we adapt, and then we go again. So I see this process really does work. In the areas that I'm working mostly with, it's really that debate, decide, and persuade is a lot of the pieces that are missing, and that's probably, I'm guessing, where some of the radical candor can help. If we have established the trust, then you can have the debate, and as you make the decision, it makes it easier to persuade your teammates that this is the way to go once the decision's been made. I don't know. I just found it interesting. There's lots of different ways to arrive where we need to go. There's just a framework that she proposes, and those are the 4 areas that I really wanted to explore with you all tonight. And that just brings us. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Someone had a question.
Just to add to what you were saying, I think one of the tough things, the Great Resignation, is probably there's a lot being documented about it, and maybe in a future session or just outside we can look at this. There's so much data being gathered, but I think at companies large and small, I just wanted to build on the other points that lack of listening, lack of collaboration, when people were stressed at all levels of organizations, large and small, you start telling, and it doesn't work out. And you know, that's, people had needed to take some control for a whole, you know, so many individual reasons. But that is like, not doing this has cost, how many millions of dollars have companies lost because they didn't follow a process like this over the last couple of years for all sorts of decisions to adjust. So thank you for sharing this, and I'm checking out the book. So thank you.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. Even the audio version is good if you're an Audible listener, or you can even get it from the library. At least where I live, you can check it out digitally for like 21 days and get it. Just get on the list. Lots of ways to consume this content.
I have a quick comment.
Yeah, Rajiv, go ahead.
Yes, quick comment on this, basically, because you know what, this process is very, very fine. What you explained, that is also nice. But the problem is, if we do not have a specific time for doing all this process, in that case, it fails.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, so the thing is, like, ultimately, for example, if we have got 10 minutes, right? And in 10 minutes, it's not going to work. Sometimes it may extend to 1 hour or 2 hours, or 3 hours, or days, it may be, right?
Yes.
And then leadership doesn't allow that. So in that case, it fails.
Excellent points. I would probably throw this into the more situational. I mean, not every decision goes through or needs to, depending on your team agreement, you know, and how you work. And I think this is, it's a lot theoretical, but I also see at the organization level, they do follow this in some regard. At least that's what I've seen. It's just maybe sometimes they spend less time on certain points where the organization could be stronger if they spend a little more time on the debating and clarifying stuff before they just get to telling people. Just my opinion.
Agreed.
All right. Well, to honor our commitment here, definitely want to bring this to a close and turn this back to Sherry. Thank you so much, Sherry, for hosting and organizing this group. I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone that participated got something out of it too, that they can take away and at least think about and maybe influence how they want to approach some aspect of how they communicate with their teams and making decisions.
Yes, thank you so much, Eric, for being here and sharing this. And it clearly has inspired many people to run out and get the book.
Terrific. Thank you.